in the dying light of a long desert afternoon, 1,000 warriors believed they had finally cornered the Persian line. Dust swelled around their feet like a rising storm, the heat shimmering off their blades. To them, victory seemed inevitable, just a matter of one final push. Yet hidden beyond the dunes, silent as the breath before a bowstring snaps, waited the strategy that would break them. What looked like a retreat was, in truth, the opening move of a design so precise, so patient, that few would survive to understand how they had been defeated. For generations, stories celebrated the courage of the invading host, painting them as unstoppable riders forged in harsh frontier lands. But what almost no one remembers is how a single Persian mind reshaped the battlefield that day. Behind the dust, behind the noise, behind the confident charge of 1,000 blades, there was a trap engineered with the discipline of a scribe and the ruthlessness of a seasoned general. Why did the Persians choose that ground? Why did they scatter their forces in a way that seemed careless, even foolish? And what whispered warning did their commander Ignora embrace that turned a simple maneuver into one of the most decisive strokes of ancient warfare? You're about to discover that what looked like chaos was, in truth, exquisite design, and that the price of underestimating Persia would echo for decades. Before we travel deeper into this story of strategy and steel, take a moment to subscribe and leave your like. It helps carry these journeys through forgotten eras to more people who share your curiosity for the past. Now, let's return to the desert, where the sands still remember what the scrolls only hint at. Centurius Ago during the expansion of the Achaemenid Empire, Persia found itself defending vast frontiers that stretched from the mountains of Anatolia to the plains of Central Asia. It was a realm rich in wealth and culture, yet precariously balanced on the edge of constant conflict. Nomadic coalitions roamed the northern steppes, testing Persian borders with swift raids and sudden campaigns. Greek city-states, to the west, plotted alliances and rebellions, even within Persia's own territories. Regional governors sometimes pushed the limits of their power, daring to challenge the authority of the great king. It was an era when every decision carried potential catastrophe. The desert frontiers were among the most dangerous. Harsh winds carved dunes that shifted as quickly as political loyalties. Water was scarce, and to anyone unfamiliar with the terrain, the landscape seemed an endless expanse of identical hills of sand, impossible to map with certainty. But to the Persians, masters of logistics, intelligence, and long-distance communication, this land offered opportunity. Beneath the vastness of the dunes lay hidden wadis, abandoned settlements, and narrow passages where an army could vanish and reappear with startling precision. Few outside the empire understood how deeply the Persians studied these lands, or how the royal road and its intelligence networks allowed generals to anticipate threats long before they appeared. Among those generals was a man whose loyalty to the empire was matched only by his fascination with unconventional warfare. He was born into a minor noble family, far from the capital, in a region where survival depended more on wit than on wealth. Even as a boy, he was known for wandering beyond the boundaries of the training fields, studying the movements of caravans and the habits of raiders who lurked at the edges of the empire. "My son," his father once told him, resting a heavy hand on his shoulder, "the desert rewards those who listen. It crushes those who assume." The words stayed with Artabanès long after his father's death, and became the guiding principle behind his rise through the ranks. As a young commander, he spent nights sitting with scouts, tracing lines in the sand by moonlight, while others slept. He learned how riders moved when they believed they were unseen. He learned how fear changed the rhythm of marching feet. Most importantly, he learned how easily overconfidence could be weaponized. When reports reached the capital of a coalition of northern warriors preparing to strike deep into Persian territory, Artabanès was assigned to intercept them before they could threaten the trade routes that fed the empire's wealth. It was a formidable enemy, seasoned fighters who relied on speed, superior horsemanship, and the intimidation of overwhelming charges. Their leaders believed that Persia's armies were too structured, too rigid, incapable of adapting to the chaos these tribes unleashed. At first, it seemed they were right. Skirmishes erupted along the frontier, many of them ending in swift defeats for Persian patrols. Rumors spread that the invaders could not be stopped. Discontent simmered, Governors whispered doubts about the empire's resolve, but Artabanus remained calm. Each lost skirmish had been part of his plan. He watched the enemy carefully, waiting for the moment when their confidence would blind them entirely. That moment came sooner than expected. 1,000 elite riders broke from the main coalition and pushed deeper into Persian lands, seeking to strike a symbolic blow before reinforcements could arrive. Artabanus saw opportunity. He chose the battlefield without the enemy realizing it. He ordered a series of feigned retreats, allowing his men to scatter as though overwhelmed. Scouts rode ahead to prepare the terrain, marking the deepest dunes, the narrowest passages, and the wind direction that would soon change. His officers questioned the strategy, worried that the Persian soldiers' morale would break. Artabanus only replied, "Let them think we run. A false victory is heavier than iron." As dawn broke on the day of the clash, the sands were cool underfoot, and the wind was still rising. The 1,000 warriors advanced, jubilant, certain that the Persians had finally lost their nerve. They charged at full speed, shouting in triumph as the last visible line of Persian infantry appeared to falter. The dust grew thicker with each gallop. They didn't notice how the dunes around them narrowed. They didn't see the glint of hidden shields buried beneath the sand. They didn't hear the low whistle that cut through the morning wind. In a single motion, the desert seemed to come alive. Persian archers burst from concealed trenches, rising like phantoms. Spears braced in hidden rows drove upward, and as the trapped warriors tried to turn, the wind finally shifted, slashing across the battlefield and hurling blinding sand into their eyes. The confusion was instant and devastating. Orthis, Drearit. Commands were lost in the roar of sand and steel. Artabanus stood on a ridge.com, watching the strategy unfold exactly as he had planned. His genius wasn't team brute force, but in using the terrain as an ally. Every dune, every gust of wind, every moment of false weakness had been calculated. Within minutes, the 1,000 were broken. Some fled into dead ends between the dunes. Others fell where they stood, overwhelmed by arrows descending from the ridgelines. When silence finally returned, the battlefield was a graveyard of shattered ambition. Artabanus rode among the fallen, not with triumph, but with the quiet certainty that he had delivered the empire from a threat few truly understood. In the aftermath, Persia regained control of the frontier. The coalition that had once terrified the empire fractured, unable to recover from the humiliating loss of its elite riders. Artabanus became a legend, praised in royal courts and whispered about in enemy camps. But his fate, like that of many great generals, was uncertain. Some chronicles suggest he retired to a remote province, wary of court politics. Others claim he continued to serve in secret campaigns far from the capital. What is certain is that his strategy became a study in precision, cited by future commanders across the empire. For historians today, the battle remains a testament to the power of understanding one's environment and the vulnerabilities of even the most confident foes. Archaeologists still debate where exactly the trap was sprung, while military scholars marvel at how Artabanus combined deception, terrain, and timing into a single, elegant strike. From that day forward, the desert frontier was no longer seen as a weakness, but as a weapon in Persia's arsenal. Stories like this remind us that empires rise not only through strength, but through insight, patience, and the ability to turn the unexpected into advantage. If you enjoyed this journey into the strategies that shaped ancient warfare, be sure to subscribe, leave your like, and share in the comments which commander, empire, or forgotten battle you want to explore next.